Hello. Thank you very much. Welcome to the YapperZone, for I am your host, AzureParagon, and we will be talking about various shenanigans along this stream. I welcome you, the guest, Coyote Lovely, and he has just followed, so thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to, I'm glad that you decided to invite me on here to talk about um, all the stuff going on in the furry fandom, things like that, and just I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. So, to begin with this, um, shall we introduce ourselves briefly and where we came from in the furry fandom? Yes?
Sure. Would you like me to go first, or would you like to go first?
Um, it's fine if you go first. You can do that.
All right. For the most part, a YouTuber. I create content that talks about predominantly bad actors in the fandom. Most people that I talk about are either pedophiles, zoophiles, necrophiles, or a combination of the three. There are occasions where I talk about people who are not any of those three things, but usually those are more lighthearted videos where I just kind of make fun of somebody for being not for being goofy, but doing very goofy things that are very outlandish, weird, and make people uncomfortable. So those tend to be less harsh, and those videos tend to be a lot more of kind of a wake up call. Um, like for example, the Garo shadow scale situation. I was a lot
Yes.
less harsh with Garo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's mostly what I do. I used to be on Twitter. I decided to close my Twitter account because I just did not have the patience for many people on Twitter. I lack the temperament. I tend to get very angry at some of these people, but it's whatever. That's kind of what I do.
That's understandable. All right, Jacksepticeye, 23, and She Okami, thank you very much for the follows. Welcome to the Yapper Zone. So, nonetheless, resuming. As for me, it's cool to know that you're a YouTuber. So that's basically what you do. In those regards. Now, for me, I am predominantly an illustrator, an artist full time. I actually, do a lot of art all the time out of commissions. So that's basically my lifestyle. And it's nonstop fun, but it's also just like logistical deprivation. Like sometimes I lose a lot of sleep over it, but hey, it is what it is. I've also like been through worse and done stuff like that before, and I've just been doing that for a long time, both in and outside of the furry fandom because I've been drawing all my life. So that being said, that was my introduction. So if we can begin any furry topics regarding the culture of fandom or anything going on, I do want to start relaying the fact that now that you mentioned Garo's shadow scale, it's like I just after hearing all those stories from a while back, it's just so hilarious how it was presented. I mean, I know people make memes on the internet, and underneath it, it's a lot darker in the underbelly of the situations. But I still gotta hand it to people who still go out of the way to make their own like YouTube or comment post content where it just adds muse and funniness to it. It's not always not everyone's mean spirited about it, but it's like, it doesn't hurt to tease. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, some people are just so good at making videos be entertaining, even if it's about something controversial. I'm not saying like, you have to be a professional troll or anything, but it's like, it's worth like the fact that people and even furries invest like if you're a YouTuber yourself, a furry YouTuber, it's like why not make it even more showy and really make the experience memorable. And it also helps like people remember the content because it's not boring, you know?
Yeah, I remember that as far as what I recall from the Garo shadow scale situation with a lot of people on YouTube who were commenting about it. I noticed that a lot of people were um, I guess there's not a whole lot of great ways to say it. A lot of people were blowing certain parts of it out of proportion.
Yeah.
For example, like when people were commenting that he like it was a cult and stuff like that. Oh, it's like a cult. It's kind of not. It's just him being a jerk and him kind of taking advantage of his audience. It's not necessarily cult like, although it is. The screenshots from his Twitter being those are very weird looking. Because I'm sure you've seen those screenshots where it was just like him, his avatar, and like the other person's avatar looking dead eyed at the camera. So it was very frightening to look at. It's very unnerving, very uncanny
Yeah,
valley. But
that's that's also kind of why I'm not really keen on showing my real life face because it's like I you know it's gonna sound like anyone else, but I kind of feel like I don't look very pretty. But anyway, um, that all being said, yeah, I think it's really just comes down to the fact that yeah, they wanted to make something entertaining, but they got carried away, with their like popularity and fame. But it also comes down to their driving force being money, 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 money. So it's like, oh my God. But then like ethics gets kind of thrown to the side, and that's where it did get problematic.
Yeah, I suppose, and that I agree with that. There is a lot of things that I found problems with, which is why I made the video that I did. I think there's things that I had problems with on both sides of it, though. After seeing how everything really got out of hand,
Yes,
and one of them, like I said, was people accusing Garo of making a cult because that's, in my opinion, just there's nothing to substantiate that. Another thing that I found very just kind of disingenuous and like a dishonest argument a lot of people made was like, oh, well, a lot of your audience is children. It's like, okay, as much as he can't prove that's not true, you can't exactly prove that is true. So you're kind of just making a non-argument here. Let's focus on the facts here. That's because there's plenty of things to be critical of him, in my opinion.
mm,
There's plenty of things that you can prove that you can be critical of him for, especially with how everything played out. But you don't need to start pulling out non-starter arguments just to try to prove a point that ultimately nobody can prove is either positive or negative.
true. And it's like, and I do see where you're also coming from. What's not exactly a cult, but it shares characteristics and connotations that resemble a cult. But other than that, it's not really a cult. It's just it's when there was it is a problematic community in mostly on this part. I actually did briefly once took a peek in his community, like joined his Discord, and this was last year, like over a year ago during spring, and I felt like something was just kind of off. So I just really quietly left because I wanted to come back from hiatus, becoming a streamer again. I mostly stream art. I don't really stream video games, but I'm slowly considering the reconsidering the idea of just making sure I do that so I can play with furries, other furries, and kind of make it a good experience. And I can see why, like, it's just always been, the standard for Twitch streamers and not just furries who draw art streams all the time. But personally, I do prefer like streaming art around like at least 90% of the time. So you'll see future broadcasts that will be completely different from this. And I do like to try to illustrate what I need to work on, be it commissions and sometimes fun furry art doodles. I should really encourage myself to do that more often and not just having to always like do commissions, commissions, commissions. Because I know it's serious business, but that can kind of get monotonous, and it's like, that's just not fun. It's not always fun. So I do like to make sure I want to spruce things up a bit. I've also been trying to change the interface and making sure it works better, is more presentable, and I can just make more furry art for people for any spare time that I would decide to just start streaming art and not just simply working on my artwork off stream, which is also comfortable. But it's like I want to make sure I balance out the two and not like neglect any aspects on that. But as far as drawing art goes, after hearing about the Garros shadow scale, believe it or not, I did think about wanting to illustrate some gift art. And after hearing about that, I was like, so much for that, throwing that idea and possibility out the window.
Oh yeah, it's honestly I do genuinely feel bad about some of the people who looked up to Garo.
Hmm.
Um, because it's never my intention. I want to clarify this. It is never whenever I make a video, it's never my intention to go out and just ruin someone's perception of anybody else. I don't relish in that. Okay, I'm gonna amend that actually. I only relish in that when it's genuinely awful people. That's the only time. But when it comes to someone like Garo, where it's like they've made some mistakes but can probably learn from it, that's the one thing where I'm like, oh, I don't like that I just made somebody really hate this person they used to look up to.
Yeah.
And I look at this situation, and I like look even with like hindsight and stuff like that. I'm looking at the situation like he absolutely deserved the video I made because I didn't go overboard and I made points that there was backing for it.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's one of those things where I'm looking at these comments from people who used to look up to him, and I'm like, I really don't like that this person's perception of this human being is now completely shattered, and I hope that that can be fixed if he turns himself around a little bit more and starts to focus more on improving himself, his content, and treating his audience better and not like a piggy bank. Because that was my
Mm,
biggest point of contention. He treats his audience very much like a piggy bank, and he's very restrictive on what they are permitted to do. Like you can't participate in his community if you were a Twitch streamer or YouTuber want to become one. And that to me, I was just like, that's such a messed up thing to do to basically give that ultimatum
I feel like at this
here.
point, the probably like if I was to align the seven deadly sins, I think the worst one in this case will be pretty much greed. Like it just radiates of greed. Also, Riddle of Lightning, you followed a few minutes ago. Thank you very much. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah, thank you. So yeah, it's just it is what it is though, and they'll just do what they do, they just do what they please. So there's really not much we can do about it. But other than that, people have already made enough cautionary tales. So I feel like if they did their part, that's that's really good enough in enough ways. I mean, unless something bad happens again and people have to take actions differently, I don't think we have too much to worry about. It's just yeah, but other than that, if there's one thing that ever since I actually moved to Texas, guess what city I'm actually in? Because it's guess what city Garo lives in? Because it's kind of an unfortunate thing.
I I'm a little just because of the culture of the internet, I'm a little less comfortable with
Mm,
that kind of information,
it's fine,
being
but
specified. I
yeah, don't worry about it. It's just, if anything, it's just more of a trivial side mention. It's nothing special, nothing for me to worry about personally. I mean, I live my own ways and meet my own people. So just not everybody like always goes out to fur meets anyway. So I really don't have anything to worry about. I don't think. Oh, and speaking of which, I'm actually gonna be headed for Stratosphere. That is a Houston furry convention. It's really small, so I've never been to a super small furry convention before. I've always been to the medium and large size ones. So that I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about it, but at least it's not gonna feel as super hectic, I guess. But I'll probably be seeing some of the same faces with people I'll be meeting more often than not, especially if the space is kind of small. So that's just something to mention about like because I can imagine how that would go, and it's like yeah, this feels different compared to a very large furcon, you know.
Yeah, no, I definitely get what you're saying. Personally, I don't attend furry conventions. I've always had a running joke whenever people talk to me about it's like, well, why don't you go to this convention? Why don't you go to this convention? I'm just like, look, if I ever wanted to hang out with a bunch of very awkward people that probably don't smell great, I would just go to the local bus station. It saves me a lot of money in traveling expenses, and frankly, I would get the exact same experience.
Hmm. I see.
It's a joke. I don't mean that. It's just a joke. Don't worry.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, am I reading on chat? I see. That being
Um,
said, what I want to mention? Oh, and speaking of furry conventions, BLFC just finished. Like it literally just finished. And if I may, and if I may mention something, there was a dance competition for fursuiters, and there was one in particular where there was a lot of booing from what I've heard, and it's like, oh my god, that is so fucking
I'm very aware of how that went down, and honestly, that
funny.
one when I heard about it, it made me smile. I was smiling from ear to ear. It was definitely that was one of the situations, like I mentioned earlier, that some situations I do relish in it when it's deserved.
Hmm.
That particular person, and I'm not going to say his name because he's going to get very, very upset if I do that. I'm saving that for later.
Mm.
Um, but that person absolutely deserves it. And there's some very interesting information that I've become privy to as well, with things beforehand, things like that. It's very, very entertaining. It made me happy to find out. It made me very, very happy.
Sorry. On a side note, this for some reason I'm just imagining how like it kind of reminds. I know it sounds kind of random, but it kind of gives me the similar vibes that I remember. way back then when with the whole people memeing about the leave Britney alone and that biggest fan of her. When there was at one point on TV where she did like she got like pulled up to like be part of a talk show or something. When she popped up, everybody was booing at her, and it's like, oh my god, this gives me back funny memories on TV as a kid. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just the situation is like kind of unfortunate, really, but it's like I can't help but laugh about it on the surface, and not just the fact that there's a lot of like memes on the internet about that. It's like, oh my god, it's become kind of a classic, really.
Yeah, honestly, with everything that happened, like the booing that happened to this person, it was so well deserved. I'm actually really happy that somebody actually like had the backbone to say something publicly. Multiple people, from what I heard. But I actually genuinely applaud the person who yelled at him, "Trans rights are human rights." Because
Oh,
one, I think that's a sentiment literally everyone can agree with, and two, I hate that Cord tried to justify his argument like with the whole bathroom thing, where it's just like, okay, yeah, yeah, the sign on the door that's going to stop people from getting attacked. Like that's the deterrent for anyone who's going to do those things. It's
hmm.
like, oh darn, my kryptonite, a door. It's like, dude, that's such a bad argument that I just don't even know why he thought that made any logical sense. And I'm assuming right now you understand what I'm talking about here. If not, I'll give you the tweet or the screenshot. But it's wild how crazy and unapologetic he is at being transphobic, and then tries to justify it
um,
like, "Well, I'm just factually correct." It's like, "Well, you're actually factually an asshole."
that yeah,
And I
that's
said his name. I realized that I said his name, but
I mean, it's a shame, but all I'll say is I only knew about this situation in a really vague and basic way. So the transphobic part, I actually had no idea. I was a bit blind to that. But other than that, I only kind of just like heard about it for the hilarity of like the event, and it's like, oh, well, this is something.
yeah. Like one of
Mm,
my mods pointed that out earlier today in my server, and I was just like, "That's a really good point." Like, it's like the door's not going to stop anyone who would be attacked otherwise. Why do you think that's a valid argument? Like, I'll send you the screenshot right.
okay. Yeah. Let me go ahead and check on Discord. Um, that being said, what am I also trying to think of? Yeah. Mm. I definitely want to kind of like read
Yeah,
more into this later afterwards, but thanks for sending it. Yeah.
no
So,
worries. Absolutely. Like Cord, not only is he transphobic, he's actually there's a very strong argument that you could probably make towards him potentially being a zoophile simply off of the fact that one, he had it on his F list under favorites, so cut that one down. Two, he actively has talked about looking up cat mating videos because he finds them fascinating for reasons that I don't understand. Three, apparently he's shown his entire family. I don't know who that entails,
um,
potentially everybody, even his kids, horse mating videos. So it's like,
well,
what?
the only thing I ever knew before was the showing the entire family part. And I know not a lot of people do it on the internet because it might be a privacy issue or thing, but it's like I can kind of understand. This is from like a generic situation, but it's like I can kind of understand the sentiment of like wanting to like be all bubbly and share your family and like you have a heritage and you kind of like show your pride about it and he's even become a father, so I don't know how that's gonna go. I think that was like a few years ago or something like that, several years ago. But it's like there's I don't think there's anything really wrong with like sharing like positive sentiments about like oh like your family and whatnot if if you feel that way like I it really depends on the individual family member, but it's like I don't know if it's like necessary. I don't think it is, and it's like I can kind of see why like not a whole lot of people are so open about that, trying to like I don't know like take pride in their heritage or whatever. I'm not sure what the purpose even is for, but it's like I never really see anyone go that far. And actually design a family tree, but I guess it's just what I'm thinking of is that they just really, really, really want to be remembered like widely. But now after all this, I think some things are gonna be remembered for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, he really wants to be a celebrity. He really wants to play up this pseudo celebrity narrative about himself, and it's one of these things where it's like, buddy, you are not the big. Well, you're becoming the big deal that you think you are, but not for the same reasons you think you're a big deal. Let me tell you.
Oopsies. Yeah, and I remember there was a time when it's like, okay, so if a person wants to be remembered, one idea is that they would like go to as many furry conventions as possible and try to make an impact. And it's like that's a really expensive endeavor, and not just the fact that you would have a fursuit or more than one fursuit, hell, even several fursuits. Like that's I don't know how anybody can like do that. Like where do they even get that money from? But to each their own. They do them, but it's like if you're gonna like go to so many furry conventions just to make an impact, make sure you're doing it right. Like, be careful not to get a really bad reputation where it is justified rather than being rumored for the wrong reasons. There's a difference after all. I mean, as they say, like, having money can take you far, sure, but having a good heart will take you far forever. And if people can see that within you, that's usually a very good sign. I mean, like, you just have to know how to like show and present it. And I don't think the heart is like the best thing that's going on here with Cord.
No, but then again, if you asked him, he would tell you that I'm evil. So I mean, who knows who to believe at this point?
That's kind of ironic because on a cosmetic level, my persona literally is a demonic coyote. So that could allude to a lot of things, but it's like it's I don't know. I just found that kind of amusing.
Yeah.
But looks can be
Anyway.
deceiving after all. But hey, I just thought it'd be kind of fun to poke that out loud.
Yeah, no, I get you. And also, I just wanted to point out to everyone in chat, I appreciate you guys being here. I am reading chat. So I'm if there's a point where we're gonna start addressing chat, I'm happy to start talking with you guys and like addressing the things you're saying. But I am reading chat. Also, hi she.
Oh, are you actually browsing on Twitch? Because that's fine. Because I really appreciate the amount of views I'm getting. You've actually been helping on this faster than I ever expected. So I guess it's good that I actually joined your community in the first place. By the way.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Yeah.
I love going on podcast. Like there's a I just quick little aside here. There's a college humor video,
Hmm.
which is basically Nick Cage. Like it's about Nick Cage talking to his agent. Now he's just is a terrible judge of what movies to be in. And at one point there's this line, and I live this line where Nick Cage just like tells his agent, "I love being in movies, Gary." And like that's me when it comes to podcasts. I love being on podcasts. Like it doesn't matter whose podcast. I'll go on a podcast. I'm happy. I'm always happy to go on podcasts. I'm always happy to help share those podcasts. It makes me happy. There's one exception actually. Now that I think about it,
Yes.
two exceptions. One of them I'm not going to mention because I don't want to give them more attention. The other is the Furry Raiders podcast. I will never be caught dead on that podcast.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't really. That doesn't really ring much of a bell. If it does, it's so vague and fuzzy to me that I just wouldn't know or care. Just saying.
Jacksepticeye in chat just named the first one, the one that I wouldn't mention.
Ah, okay, yeah. Well, again, I'd have to review some things on my own, and the things you've also sent me so far. So that's something I can take care of myself as far as absorbing information goes. But other than that, let's see what else there is to mention. Huh? Oh, someone. uh, well, anyway, let me think for a moment. Now, regarding other furry fandom, shenanigans, let me think, let me think, let me think. What is there anything that is coming to your mind that's like anything like community or culture related in the furry fandom that's going on, or even any historical, I don't know, like
Uh,
yeah.
there's one thing, but that's a big can of worms. I don't I don't. I, it's a it's a tall order to talk to even talk about it right now.
Uh, yeah, that seems
Do
to be kind of your thing. I've noticed. It's like, oh my god.
I know, and it's one of these things where even I'm looking at this, I'm like, I don't really think I should be talking about this one. This is a. I don't think that's a good idea at all.
Yeah, you're better off just PM me about that kind of stuff on like our own
Okay.
conversations. And don't worry, I'm not like very absent on Discord. I'm not lightning fast. I just like I see the notifications, but sometimes it takes time for me to reply because obviously we have our daily lives and stuff like that, yada yada yada. But I do come around and sometimes actually appear offline. So don't be afraid to like you know um eye me at any point in time. I think the only times you should avoid messaging me if I'm actually on a do not disturb status. But other than that, I just thought I'd let you know that.
No problem. Misty actually said it in chat. What I'm referring to, the second one. It's like, oh, yeah, oh, that it's rough.
Right.
That's brutal. I don't know. You really, oh, that's a very brutal one. Like
Well,
it's difficult to talk about.
yeah, I think sometimes a quick mention would be enough, and as a side reference, because let's not forget this podcast is also visually streamed, so I actually upload the episodes on YouTube as well, so the chat log on the screen is also available. So that's probably good enough as it is. But I do kind of get your point, guys. I see where you're coming from, Misty. I see where you're coming from, Jacksepticeye. I think that's fine. Thanks. um,
Yeah, I am not touching that one.
yeah.
I'm gonna let that one play out, and I'm gonna look through the sift through the rubble and the aftermath, and try to actually maybe make something later down the line
Hmm,
where I can look at things critically and help compile the entire timeline for everybody at a later date when
yeah,
everything's said and done.
yeah. You can do that for your own project. So I wish you the best of luck with that.
But yeah, right now it's plutonium. Don't Nobody goes near that without melting. Like no, I would not. No, no, no.
Um, it does kind of make me wonder on a side note. I, I actually do kind of want to talk about something. It's a bit more abstract. I'm not saying I did much research on this, but I wonder how, honestly, I wonder how furries in Russia and the Ukraine are faring right now because it's probably a very not an easy situation, and there's a lot of things that now are a lot more cumbersome than it normally is for the everyday life. Like that's something I've been wondering out of concern about. What do you think?
I've never visited Ukraine or Russia. I've never been a resident there. Though I've only ever lived in the United States, and the only time I've ever left the United States was to visit Mexico on different occasions. None of your business why. I'm not going to say that. None of you start asking questions. You're being too inquisitive right now. But no, I don't really know how it's affected them. I sincerely hope, regardless of which country they happen to live in, whether it be Russia or Ukraine,
Hmm.
any people in the fandom who are just innocent bystanders are doing the best they can. And I sincerely wish for the best for them because what their governments are doing, regardless if it's right, wrong, good or bad, it doesn't matter. It is not their fault, and I sincerely hope they're doing okay and that they're going to be okay.
Yeah,
That's kind of all I've got to say about it.
yeah, and if anything, it wouldn't surprise me if they can like band together and make sure they can get through this together. I mean, not just the fact that they're furries and they just connect with each other, get to know each other in the first place, um, you know, but it's just a human thing to do. I mean, if anything, it's like for people's cooperation and survivals, and even when folks, and furries have to set their differences aside because of bigger circumstances, it's like you got to really hand it down to the altruism that comes with it. And should they like have to migrate to safer places like Georgia, my heart goes out to them. And I personally don't speak. I don't even know a smidge of like Russian or Ukrainian, sadly. So I would not know. I would not be able to communicate to anyone like that. But for anyone out there, I would really hope you guys would be safe. And it's just um, you know, I don't know if I'll ever be translated from this right now from what I'm saying, but it's just I can only imagine how much of a struggle it is, especially if such a like a refugee or fugitive has to constantly keep moving out and just traveling because they feel they have to, or because something happened near them and they actually have to like move immediately. And it's just I can only imagine just how exhausting that'll be, both like physically and mentally.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify political topics, whether they're just in general or as they pertain to the furry fandom. Those are not topics that I'm well versed in, and I don't usually partake in many discussions about them. And the reason why is because my limited understanding of these topics, I
Mm,
find it to be detrimental to participate in an open dialogue about these because I feel like if people start listening to what I have to say, and I
mm,
don't understand everything about this, that could be detrimental towards the discussion itself. So this is one of those things that when it comes to these kinds of topics, I tend to participate less, although I do observe them,
yeah.
because I feel that my participation is ultimately more detrimental than it is positive.
Mm. To be fair, I actually am not in the loop with these kind of things very much either. A lot of it, I just kind of just like think about things and try to put two and two together, and it's like it's really just basic, more or less. Like the things I've been saying is more humanitarian than political. It's like wishing for the best and what it is to like make sure like just kind of like sending my wishes out. That's really all there is to it, and there's really not much more to say. So, but I just thought I'd like get that out there. It's just like if anything is happening on countries and that are under like martial law, and I'm just simply hoping, and I'm saying out loud that I'm rooting for anyone, especially in the furry fandom that live in those places. They just, I'm really hoping they'll make it out and things can calm down for them. That's just a matter of just making sure I share that sentiment. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
I completely agree. The way that I see it is, most members of the fandom and people who are, they're not soldiers, they're not political figures, they're just civilians. They're not direct contributors to any of the negative things that may be surrounding this entire, ordeal. And I sincerely hope that, regardless of which side of things they happen to be on, whether it's Russia or Ukraine, they happen to be okay. They're keeping safe, and they make sure that they're going to be all right.
Hmm.
Because honestly, the way that I see it is civilians of a country, like citizens, like who are not active military, who are not, political figures, who are not dictators or kings or presidents or what have you. They're not the people who can, who should be held accountable for the actions, whether positive or negative, of the country. And for the most part, all we can do when it comes to the citizens themselves is sincerely wish that they're going to keep themselves safe in this conflict and hopefully see a brighter tomorrow at the end of it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, exactly. And that being said, um, it on a more creative note, I'm hoping when I get around to like not having to do commissions all the damn time, I kind of want to do some like artwork that kind of portrays some of my own creativity, like original stuff, but it's more like personal things. And it's like if I want to make something that is has like a humanitarian theme to it, I'm not saying it's political. I'm just saying like I'm thinking of like what if I can illustrate like military furries and like civilian furries just helping out one each other because I feel like there are some subject matter in furry art while some of them can get iffy and they have to be treaded carefully. It's like some of them are just really well executed and they kind of just get underrepresented. And I feel like there are just some things that could really use some variety in the furry fandom as far as subject matter is concerned. So I just thought that'd be something really intriguing that I thought I'd bring up because yeah, I know there's a lot of porn and fetishes and stimulatory fun stuff, and even just on the safer work side, there's like comics and gags and doodles and kind of the typical stuff. Even the art styles become kind of standardized for it. But for people who make like very like outlandish like pieces of art that are still in the furry category or have like an alternative style or go through like certain species or subject matter and character choices that just don't get enough representation or even attention and appreciation, that's something I'm hoping I can also address directly because like I said, I can actually illustrate that kind of stuff. I just need to get around to grips with it and get some more spare time out of that. Well, what do you
No, I
think?
definitely understand what you're saying. Well, I definitely understand what you're saying. When it comes to um, the less traditional artwork that you'll see from the furry fandom, for example, it's not your run of the mill like a 3/4 angle headshot kind of thing, or it's not like pornography of some kind. It's something that was like you. It makes you look twice at it because you're just not used to seeing it. That's the kind of stuff I really enjoy seeing. And actually, there's one meme that I've been practicing drawing, and I've only been practicing drawing this meme because I want to be able to, on the fly, draw this meme with any two furry characters of my choice whenever I want to. And it's a really pointless endeavor that's never going to have any kind of commercial payoff, but it's fun for me because I love this meme. This meme makes me so happy because it's so absurd and so weird that I want to be able to do that. That is so every day I've been practicing different aspects of that. Right now, it's okay. There's this meme from Mystery of the Druids. It's a game that is very strange.
Oh.
With Detective Lowry, and Detective Lowry is actually floating 3 feet above his chair. He's supposed to be sitting in it, but he's floating 3 feet above his chair. And the thing about it is, though, that's not an accident. That is by design because if you check the screenshots on the game's website, you'll see that one pictured there by the devs, which means that is by design how Lowry is supposed to be sitting above his chair. And it's never addressed. Nobody else sits above their chair. Nobody else floats. And nobody treats this like it's any different. So this meme
Hmm.
has become a really weird esoteric thing that floats around the internet, and I love this meme and I want to learn to draw it perfectly so that anytime I want, I can replace the two characters in that meme, Lowry and the main character Halligan, with any character that I choose. And it's strange. There's no commercial value to this. It's just something I want to do. And I've been practicing different parts of the meme every single day. Like, I've got a fucking notebook over there just filled with different me practicing the desk by itself. No other part of the room, just the desk, because I want to get this perfect.
Wow. I
And it's
mean,
fun.
it's special quirks. Have fun with that. I'm pretty sure it'll be very therapeutic for you too.
Oh, I'm having a blast with it. It's so much fun. I'm really enjoying it. It's
Yeah.
definitely relieving a lot of stress, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between something that's challenging because it's fun, then there's one that are just outright like detrimentally brutal. But that being said, this game, I'm guessing it's not exactly a furry game, is it?
No, no, it's not.
No.
It's just an old school point and click game that came out around the 2000s or something like
Oh,
that.
nice.
And it's just such a weird thing that's never addressed in the game that just kind of happens and nobody talks about it.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean,
like
video game mysteries will be like
uh
that. It kind of
yeah,
reminds me of
so
like quirky games. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
oh, yeah, so I was just gonna finish by saying, so it's something that because this one image really resonated with me, I just want to draw it whenever I want to with any character that I want. I need to practice it a lot just to be able to draw it perfectly from memory, but I
Hmm.
want to do that because it's funny.
That's cool. With quirky and strange games, it kind of makes me think of indie games that really hardly ever get any like um like traction. Like they're obscure for better or worse. But two games I've been thinking in mind were like these RPG Maker based games called Meetings and Gingiva. I forgot who the creator was, but they if you ever try to like download and access and play those games, it seems like it plays like an old school RPG, but it's like there are so many strange, wildly and deliberately outlandish subject matter that sometimes you can honestly get completely lost in it on what you need to do next. So it's a bit of a detriment to the gameplay structure and flow, but it's just something. But I feel like I can't help but really appreciate the intricacies and the collage style art that those two games have put. And it's like, wow, if somebody made a furry equivalent of this game, it will be a very surreal experience for them and not just for like the indie game public that people play video games on because yeah, I just you just gotta hand it to those really super surrealistic kinds of settings and characters and just really odd quirky stuff that you could probably imagine having in a nightmare.
Yeah.
That reminds me. This is also gonna continue on to furry stuff. Although it might there's still a bit more art to it that I need to discuss. Now I know people have like made like some graphic novels and even like comics, furry comics, and I know that the adult stuff gets a lot of the attention, but like the safer work stuff that have like a really gripping story and setting, those are the things I'm still more invested in. Like anything that has a genuinely like meritable quality to their story and not just the genre, but it's like and that there's also a furry twist to it. So it kind of makes me think like I've been trying to like get back from a big hiatus from a really ambitious set of comic projects I've been working on. They are furry related. One of them I finished a long time ago. It was called Speechless City. It is somewhere in my FA gallery in one of the subsections of comics, and actually will say the title there. So I'm trying to revamp that, and it's like you know it's a lot of work, and I I'm hoping that I can actually make a bigger difference with that, and not because of like the money and the reception and fame, but I'm talking about like making a genuinely good story with like pretty good artwork and presentation, and that's something I'm hoping I can endeavor more and hopefully make some sort of like impact or at least have give people a good time by reading those kind of comics. And I just, it's not just the fact that I'm trying to start new stuff like podcasts, but I've been also trying to tread some old habits and old dreams that I've been trying to return to. And my point is this: is that one of my favorite projects I've been trying to work on is called Ventures. I already have the plot, the summary, and how the characters are gonna go down, and everything figured out. And I even had like an old draft of it from like 12 years ago. But it's like, and I'm trying to revamp and kind of remake everything. But I think one of the biggest reasons I'm becoming a lot more motivated again is because, believe it or not, considering what kind of genre that comic series I'm trying to work on and continue is, what I'm saying is, um, believe it or not, when I saw the trailer to Avatar: The Way of Water, it was awe-inspiring. It was kind of calming because of the music, and it kind of made me want to go back into actually trying to actively go forth with one of my old underdeveloped comics again, and that is Ventures. So it's like, wow, how can like it made it's like it made an effect on me, and it's like I'm gonna start making furry comics again because of a movie trailer. Have you ever had that sort of effect happen to you, or a similar situation where it's like you saw something inspirational, and you want to it make you want to go back to something or make something like from scratch?
Well, sometimes, yeah. I mean, as a YouTuber, like I don't solely just make content for myself. There are times where I will work freelance as an editor as well. And that is one of, in my opinion, the most challenging aspects of video editing, which is editing for somebody else. Because what part of what that entails is bringing their vision to life, but
Hmm.
also not sacrificing your own vision. And to me, that's been one of the most frustrating things trying to find that compromise. Finding that compromise where it's like, okay, this is ultimately what I always do. This is one of the things that is a trademark of when I do these things. It helps people recognize this is what his work looks like.
Hmm.
But then you also have to remember this is somebody else's work as well. This is on somebody else's channel. So you have to find that compromise where you're not sacrificing your vision, but ultimately what you are keeping that is part of your vision is not a hindrance to their vision. It's not detrimental. And these two things have to coexist, your vision and their vision.
That's true.
And ultimately, what you realize is as an editor, if anyone's vision is going to be sacrificed, it's yours as the editor. It can't be the creators. Um,
Yeah,
and it's one of those things where that can be draining in and of itself, but there's certain things that I do see sometimes in videos or things that I'll even see like not even on YouTube where I'm just like watching something else like maybe I'm maybe I'm watching Cobra Kai. I've actually watched Cobra, been picking that one back up on Netflix and stuff like that. But there'll be things that I'll see where it's like little editing things, and I'm just like, because that's what I start spotting like as an editor. And I'm like, I love the way that was done. How did they do that? And also like sort of playing in Sony Vegas to deconstruct little things, and that really kind of gets me more inspired to wanting to get back into doing more editing and things like. That's kind of what I guess that's the biggest thing that I can relate to there.
that's true. But yeah, it's always a good thing that, especially for furry artists, and I can definitely see why with a lot of other furry artists, they really want their own sense of agency, creative agency, not just like the business practice market. Now, I would say the cooperation and people helping each other makes it even more better. Like, people working on projects together, or making things just more manageable, and then of course people who are grouped into actual companies like fursuit companies or clothes, be it like Nomad Complex or Hyena Agenda, and for more. And it's like it's just kind of a beautiful thing to like think about, like the fact that people have been able to expand on the dreams, not just because they have the drive to do so individually, but because other furries are helping each other become part of that collective and really driving those visions to come true, very very productively too. So yeah, I'm just hoping that I can network with more comic artists that in the furry fandom, and not just the fact that I'm trying to get back into comic, drawing comics and like illustrations that have a sequential storytelling as a whole, in period. Obviously, it's gonna be a furry story, but it's like the principle goes for anyone really. So um, anyone who's trying to create stuff, whether you're an artist or a musician or a writer or a YouTube editor and video and filmographer, etc. I really wish you all the best, and with good intention too, in good faith. And that goes for
Yeah, I
you too,
definitely understand.
Coyote.
I definitely wish you the best in your endeavors too. And honestly, anyone who's pursuing any kind of creative thing on the internet, I honestly have a lot of respect to give them because it's very what a lot of people don't seem to recognize is that it's very easy to be very critical of people from the replies, the comments section, but it is very difficult to actually put something out there, especially when you're just starting out. That's very, very scary. Um, Even as somebody like who's very critical of people, I can acknowledge that. So, I definitely have a lot of respect for people who actually put things out there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely kind of that threshold, and then you just get used to it. Some people even get addicted to it, and I'm not saying it's outright bad. It just depends on what kind of content you're making. But I'm actually kind of fall under this category because the things I try to make, I literally am just I always driven my own habits to like post whatever I can. It's also just to kind of show that hey, I'm still doing my commissions. I'm still being very diligent here. I know that some clients may have to wait a little longer here and there because of the scope of the project and not just the fact that I'm working on a lot of people's stuff as well. But it's also because I'm also trying to show evidence is that hey, I'm providing also fun content. So if anybody wants to like donate money, that's on you. And it just goes to show how much they would appreciate the things I do because whatever I present or show is either entertaining or there's just something valuable about it. So it's just one of those things that as a person of creative of endeavors and being a freelance artist, I just try to stay as productive as I possibly can. I'm not saying you should like wreck your own health or become like hyperactive all the time. Definitely have fun with it. And kind of go crazy if you want, but it's like there's always kind of that fine line between like just having fun with it more than expected versus like kind of like destroying your own health. So that's just something every creative person or anyone who does a lot of work has to just be very cautious about and wary.
No, I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Mhm.
I always tell people. I mean, I always tell them when I talk to other people who are either YouTubers like that are very small or aspiring to become YouTubers or Twitch streamers or it doesn't matter. One of the things that I always tell them is that never if you feel like you are not ready to keep going with what you are doing, don't hesitate to take a break. Because you start feeling like and this
Mm.
is like a personal thing that I've felt as a YouTuber, and I had to learn it like just by experience. It's okay to take some time to make sure you're really doing all right. Like your audience is gonna understand. Like like I guarantee you, there is no YouTuber alive who right now at this present time has all of their audience constantly hitting refresh on their channel to try to see when the newest video is dropping and getting angrier by the second. That's not happening.
Yeah, that's
Your
not
audience
realistic.
is going to be okay with you needing to take a few days or even a week, maybe even a month if you're really not doing okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to take time to be okay with yourself. Your audience will be okay. They're going to wait for you. A lot of them will anyway. They're going to wait for the content because good content comes from creators who are actually capable of making it both physically, mentally, emotionally, what have you.
Yeah.
Don't push yourself. Your audience is going to be okay waiting for you.
Yeah. I mean, we're all only human. I mean, like, we have like the abilities to be understanding and kind, and it's like that definitely goes for the audience, and like creatives will definitely appreciate that, and in the right circumstances, vice versa. I mean, come on, it's not like we're psychotic demons expecting perfection from every human being in the entire face of existence. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I always tell like YouTubers or like aspiring YouTubers like who are trying to like build a channel or something. Be sure to take time to make sure that you're doing all right. And if you're not, take the time that you need to fix whatever's wrong, to fix what's broken, to make sure that you're doing fine.
Hmm.
That way you can put out good content that you're proud of and that your audience will love. That's the important thing right there as far as and don't try to force it. Forcing it is the worst thing you can do because your audience isn't stupid. They can pick up on when you're really phoning it in. That's they're not going to appreciate it. They're smart people. Like they're not dumb people who are just like gonna sit there and just munch popcorn mindlessly. They
Yeah,
know when you're phoning it in. They know
and
when you're faking it.
yeah, and it stands to reason why people would end up being like also disappointed or confused or infuriated with whenever that happens, and or even just downright worried. But the signs are not that hard to tell after all. And that's why it also just really this is true where it's like you really just gotta make sure to take your time and trust your instincts, basically, like at every step of the way. That's why I don't want to like. That's why I guess it kind of stands to reason why I had my reasons for taking a hiatus from drawing comics because I need to like make sure I cater to my commissions first, and once the load finally reduces greatly, that's when I can start finally like taking baby steps to like return to some of my dream projects as well. But yeah, I just hoping for the best. We can all learn how to like make our furry creations come true. In all the consensual ways, and yeah, again, wish you best of luck on the endeavor. This goes for anyone else as well, whether you're working on a lot of commissions or just drawing things for fun or any other kind of project. So, all the best. So, yeah, and let's see if there's anything else I'm trying to think of mentioning. Um, yeah, I wonder what's been, I wonder what's been going on like recently in the furry fandom that's been very positive, like nothing controversial or not something that would be like easy to make fun of, but something that can be respected. Like has there been anything pretty neat going on lately in the furry fandom or community by any chance?
Um, I mean, aside from the typical, tomfoolery that's been happening on Twitter, and I call it tomfoolery very lightly. There's a little
Hmm.
bit more than tomfoolery. It's not just like a little bit of trolling, but aside from what I kind of mentioned that I'm not really going to be talking about, and then there's the stuff with Cord, which I'm going to be talking about a little too much probably. Uh, but yeah, there's that stuff too. The best of my awareness, there's nothing else too noteworthy going on. I've just I haven't been as in touch with a lot of the drama since I've kind of left Twitter at the start of this month. But honestly, I feel like it's kind of for the better. Like
Oh my god.
I would, I. It's not that it was bad on my mental health. It's just that there's certain types of people on Twitter that I just don't want to fucking deal with. It's just like I don't know what it is. There's certain people that just get under my skin on Twitter, and I'm just like, God, it's not that they're even like draining mentally or emotionally. It's that I just don't want to hear from certain types of people.
Oh, I know
And
exactly
some
what
of
you
them
mean.
were on Twitter. Yeah, and
Yeah.
some of them were on Twitter, and I'm just like, I just don't want to fucking hear from you, dude. So I wound up just being like, why do I have this website anymore? I don't need it. My channel's doing fine. I've been suspended multiple times on my old account, and it never impacted my channel in any negative way. If I want to talk to people who are in my community, I have a Discord server. And I'm just like, why do I have this? This is superfluous, and frankly, it's just annoying with certain people. So why am I
Hmm.
here? So I decided let's just leave.
For
So I'm like, Lamau, bye.
Yeah, for me, it's like it's basically mostly like a roulette of random content because I actually follow just fucking thousands of people and it just changes every time. So for me, it's easy for me to actually not pay attention to much of any of that kind of stuff. And if anything, I actually just try to focus on the cool stuff on Twitter. And when I say that, I'm talking about like coming across like, oh, this is a cool illustration. Oh, look at this artwork. Oh, look at this awesome photo. Oh, look, this is really funny. And those are the kind of things I focus on, like liking or retweeting. And that's really what I cater to. And just I try not to overuse Twitter, but for that reason, like with the right mindset, you'll be able to find something like that'll help, like kind of entertain you on Twitter rather than things that will get under your skin all the time. But unfortunately, there are like random encounters on that. For some people, especially for people who follow a lot of people on Twitter, that they'll just end up having the spot on their timeline, whether they like it or not.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just
I don't know.
yeah.
It's also one of the reasons I deleted Twitter is that I also recognize that when you look at a lot of the really iffy things people will say that come back to bite them,
Mm.
it's always tied back to something they said on Twitter when they probably shouldn't have said it. It's that boom send tweet mentality where you don't. There's okay when it comes to like YouTube, when you're
Mm.
making a video, you have time to really consider what you want to do and say in that video, or even if you want to put the video out at all. Like, there's got to be at least for every one video that exists on my channel, there's at least three that I didn't put out because I thought, well, this seems a little petty, or these points seem too weak, or maybe this just isn't a good idea.
Mm.
And it turns out that those were the better ideas not to put those videos out in retrospect.
Yeah.
Twitter doesn't have that. Twitter has a tweet button. Twitter has a do you want to post this button? And most people don't even think about it. They don't give two thoughts about it. They just post it. And one thing I noticed is that that's really what tends to burn people.
Yeah,
So when I looked at that and thought about it more, I was like, I'm of the temperament of the boom send tweet mentality, so maybe I should just not be here as well.
yeah. I mean, it's just like it can also get really depressing at times. It's like, man, calm down. All I gotta say is that's why it's usually a good idea to just, like sometimes like be slow about this. It's like you want to like think about like if even considering the idea of tweeting something before you're even online to start going on Twitter to tweet something and write it. So it's like that's another thing. If you can make that an obstacle, that'll actually kind of give itself some like groundedness. It's like yeah, because at least you're not going to be able to do something as rash as likely. And with YouTube, that is like it forces on that because you have to genuinely take plenty of effort to create something and then finally present it. So it definitely is kind of like a blessing in disguise when these things you can do are actually can also present themselves as obstacles, even if you're like having a bad day or something like that, you know?
Yeah, because like there's with the way that I create content, there's almost a 0% chance that I would ever be able to put a video out while still being angry about something that happened in the heat of the moment. Because that means I would have to go through the entire scripting process, then recording process, then editing process, and then make a thumbnail for it. I have to go through all of that in the heat of the moment, which is almost impossible with the content that I make. Like, the content I make isn't super high production value, but it's high enough that it's impossible I would still be in that particular headspace to do something like fly off the handle the way that I could theoretically on Twitter. So it's one of those things where yeah, that level of obstacle, that buffer zone is definitely a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just some things no, I do like how some things scope out. It kind of makes me feel similar to how certain kinds of like projects I've been working on. If it's like really like difficult to work with, or if it's like ambitious in scope, the positive side is that it gives you time to like reconsider how you want to like write the story or how you want to arrange things beforehand. But it also just depends on like what kinds of steps. This is why pacing is really important. I'm not just talking about like pacing in a sequential story, but like pacing yourself in the logistics of like what you're doing, so you're not like taking missteps or going at the wrong approach. And if you want to like if you're really worried and you want to make sure you don't take the wrong sequence of like important steps that'll help make your content creations fantastic, there's always research. Like research is one of the first steps anyone should ever take on tackling any kind of project in the first place, so they'll know what to do and just get some like practical tips on that. So it always helps.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, and but there are some like sometimes there are some things where you can actually kind of like mix things up a little. Not always, but like I always found it interesting that like some people like game developers who design games like RPGs, some of them, well, if they have a good reason for it, like some of them actually like design the world first before they design the characters, so they'll know how to structure the story around it, and then some do it vice versa, where they make the characters write some sort of basic story draft and then start creating the world around it. But it's tricky, like two different like two inverted process sequences on two sides of the same coin is. And that kind of reminds me how like it would go for like if you're trying to like draft a story on a comic or a novel or anything of that nature. Yeah. uh I think that's one more thing I would like to mention before we wrap it up here fairly soon, everyone. But if there's anything that if there's anything that you remember fondly, or if there's any like furry stuff that you like dearly miss, like anything kind of on the historical side, do tell, because like there were some like old sites that I used to love visiting that are some of them are not predominantly furry, but they can work as well as that. And one of those websites I used to really miss browsing as a kid was a site called Dragon Tales, Tils, not the TV show Dragon Tales from PBS, but it's like they actually had this web comic about just like six, I think, yeah, six or seven like little baby dragons just having fun and having their own little misadventures. And it's like I wonder like where they can preserve these lost arts and lost furry fun like little contents that they had in the older days of the internet. And I wonder if there's anything of that sort that you really like kind of wish would come back. Anything you miss?
I I would say The only thing that I can really say that I absolutely miss, is the way that I personally perceived the fandom before the year 2018.
Hmm.
That's really all I can say. Um, a
Yeah.
lot of a lot per and the reason why is because a lot of the things that I used to love about the fandom are still around. I just it's my perception of them that's changed because of events.
Mm.
So that's I miss the way that I used to perceive things.
I'm really sorry to hear that. But I guess there are some things that could bring itself to a different form of light at this point, and the insights that people can give to you, hoping they're positive ones. And it's like, yeah, we can just like there's definitely some things to be like, um, you know, grounded but kind of optimistic about, sort of. But it's like, I just hope that the furry fandom will continue to thrive on certain things. And I know there's a lot of like chaotic natures and problems and going on that really wish that it didn't have to be so rampant. And kind of we kind of already talked about this with certain figures, but it's like, yeah, there's that, but then there's like, what about the wholesome side of the furry fandom? Like, we could really use more of that, as well as even more representations. And I know there's a lot of adorable artworks that people make out of that, but it's like I wonder if there's just something that they can do more with it, and just like have like maybe more grandiose purposes on top of that. So I guess my best bet is just just trust furries that you know well of, and put your faith in what they would put their endeavors to, especially to like the creative peoples, like I said before. So I don't know. Who knows how the community is going to like shape itself over the coming years. I mean, we're still in the early 2020s, and soon we'll be hitting up into the mid 2020s, and it's like I wonder what kind of landscape we're going to go through this time, and what the tonal shifts might even possibly be, if anything at all, alongside with anything that's distinctive or iconic.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much my
Sorry.
2 cents. I I'm just hoping I don't know. There's just I'm also kind of hoping there are some really cool things that was maybe kind of a thing in fandom, and if they like died for the wrong reasons, it's like I kind of wonder if they can like bring them back. I mean, I don't know. Like I know there are some trends that people make um that are pretty interesting per se, be it safe for work or not safe for work, but I don't know what I can. I'm not sure if there's anything I can think of right now that I would really want brought back, that was probably like from one of the older days, or at least several years ago. And this is not just Twitter, but it's like, things that furries used to like do more rapidly. But I don't know. I know technology changes things in people, but it's also kind of like the kind of like the social, creative like aspects of things. And this could be said the same for artists and creators. It's like, artists and creators also have their own set of trends. That they kind of just like follow along, and not just like the furry fandom in general as a whole. So I'm gonna probably be doing some observations on that, and so I'm not living under a rock. I mean, I even like follow a lot of people on Twitter, so I try to get like a broad range of like random knowledge that may or may not be beneficial to what I see, both related and non-related to the furry fandom. But it's just one of those things I'm used to doing, and I'm hoping that it's not always going to be doom and gloom, bad news, troll this and all this like chaos. And I know it seems really cynical, but it's like there is still always that like wholesome side that needs to shine brighter.
Yeah. And I mean, I would personally, my stance, I don't mind people making that kind of content. In fact, I encourage it. I think that's a great thing to have. But the reason why I have never, well, not never, there are a couple videos that actually have been kind of positive. The reason I don't do that nearly to the same extent, and the reason why, for the most part, I kind of stay directly in my lane, um, is because I see a lot of people already creating that content, and I find that my time is probably better spent going and doing what I am currently doing. If I need a huge break where I need to make something like I need to like pull the ripcord temporarily, I will make videos every now and again where I'll do something a lot more positive, like my Angel Dust video. That's a great example because I was very passionate about that.
Hmm,
I think that's a very positive video with a positive message overall.
thank you.
Um, but that said, that video is very few and far between for what I normally do. And the reason why is because there's plenty of people who will already make this content, and not enough, in my opinion, who are willing to do what I normally do, which is find the bad actors and say, hey, this is what this person's done. You all need to be aware of this kind of thing.
I
And
I get you.
as much as it sucks, I'm not trying to play myself up as some kind of martyr or anything like that. That's not what this is. It's more of just a conscious choice on my end where it's like, okay, people are already doing this very positive thing, and I think that's great. But I don't think enough people are doing this. So because
Yes.
I do this already, I don't mind.
Yeah, it's just there's really nothing wrong with trying to like go through a different angle and make something so you're not making, you're so that way you're not being redundant. And it's one thing for people to make familiar confident content and like have a unique approach or a different spin on it. But then there are people who like want to make something completely different that's a breath of fresh air, and I can kind of see you being more closer to the latter, so it's applaudable, definitely. And someone doesn't need to try too hard on that. Like again, people can tell if somebody's like trying to make something like almost fatty and like fad like and there's not enough substance, but you actually do like provide like the content that is needed to be heard. So I'd say yours, you don't have to worry about yours lacking substance. So so it's good on your part. It's not just the fact that it's refreshing and based on like the subject matter. But yeah, um
Anyway,
yeah, thank you.
uh, and yeah, no worries. I'm happy to help.
Yeah. So this concludes our podcast. Thank you very much for participating, Coyote Lovely. And I have to thank the chat very much. Thank you for the follows and anything else that comes by. We will be on our third episode, so wait till next time. And the subject for the third episode is actually to be announced. I actually have not like already came up with one yet, but it will be announced on Twitter and other sites as well. So keep an eye on that. My username is the same as those in my Twitter and my DeviantArt, as well as my FurAffinity account. So you'll be able to see news of that through my tweets and my journal. So, keep your eyes peeled. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I will see